afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're located from somewhere around the world. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this webinar with Mr. Tim Pierson, the dark web and the need for ethical hacking. The dark web encompasses that little-known seedier part of the internet, and it can be a villainous kind of underground web where you can buy and sell just about anything. It makes up about 70% of the internet. You and I on a day-to-day basis with Google are really only seeing about 30% of it. So today we're going to just take a little look at what it means inside this part of the internet, a little about its relationship to the concept of ethical hacking and why large organizations prefer certified ethical hacking pros who understand the nature of the dark web. We'll be working here today with Mr. Tim Pierson. If you're not familiar with him, he is a technical trainer for the past 27 years, one of the world's leading trainers in technology, networks, virtualization, and application security. He has written a number of popular manuals for global corporations like EC-Council and Mile2. And in addition to teaching, of course, he conducts high-level security evals, virtualization consulting, and delivers seminars and keynotes at professional conventions. Before we get rolling, though, I just want to make sure that y'all are familiar with your dashboard and how GoToWebinar works. So Tim's going to give his presentation. I'm not sure exactly how long it'll run, but let's guess around 30 minutes or so. During the course of the presentation, you can type your questions into the question module. So let's make sure that's working. Why don't you go ahead and type a little note in there. Let me know where you're joining us from. What's the weather like? Is it beautiful there? Are you hiding under a blanket? Let me know where you're coming from. Texas. Adam's in Texas and says it's beautiful today. I don't doubt that. This is a beautiful time of year in Texas. Illinois, and it's raining. Well, I'm glad you're inside there, Michael. Tennessee, and it's warm. Fantastic. We've got folks from all over the place, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to curl up with us. New Delhi, India. Fantastic. Oh, it's the evening there. Thank you for taking time away from your evening activities. And the Canadian Rockies, wow, I love it. All right, so that question module that you're using there, that's going to be your best friend. As we are going through the presentation, you go ahead and type any questions in there. You can ask Tim, to give a little extra detail on a point or to go back and revisit a previous slide at the end of his presentation, and we'll do that. We'll do all the Q&A all at once. At the end of the presentation, we'll get through as many questions as we possibly can. If you want to share what you're learning on social, if he says something super awesome and insightful, which I'm sure will happen, and you want to share it with your audience, go ahead and live tweet or post it on LinkedIn or Facebook or what have you. And if you want to, you can use the hashtag SLWebinars. I think that's it. You know how the dashboard works now, so we're getting a little bit of a late start. If we need to, we'll go a few minutes late on our end time to make up for it. So Tim, my friend, it's a pleasure to have you joining us here. I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, then, let me get my microphone a little close to me, and I'm ready to start. I guess everyone can see my screen right now?
Absolutely.
All right. And so let me kind of give you a little bit of an idea of who I am. My name is Tim Pierson. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I consider myself a researcher and a consultant. I get asked by a lot of large corporations to come in and survey their security stance. They want to know what other people can know about them. I was recently interviewed on Fox News about cloud computing. I was the contributing author to a book, VMware, vSphere, and virtual security, and also been on the CBS National News in the early show with evidence of Wi-Fi hacking. And we had kind of set up a sting operation at a local hotel, and that's live on YouTube. If you'd like to care to search for my name and Wi-Fi, you probably find it. I also want to mention that I was Timed Person of the Year in 2006. And if you know much about that, in reality, so were you. So Time named the Person of the Year you. And so I was the Person of the Year, and actually, so were you. So as we move forward here, okay, so it's not telling me when I needed to be told it, is it? Okay, so as we move forward here, there are only two types of companies that have been hacked. Those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. What we need to understand is that we will be hacked. What we need to understand is what will be the thing we need to do after we've been attacked. nobody really has that plan B. They all have the plan A, which basically says, I am only going to work on the premise that I am not going to be attacked. Not necessarily that they ever would be attacked. But really, we need to have that plan B. I guess probably the most interesting situation was, and the way I kind of justify what I do is, I was asked by my mom, who's about 86 years old right now. She knows I teach something with computers, but doesn't know exactly what I teach. I told her I'm basically teaching people how to hack into computers. And I got the response you'd expect from an 86-year-old woman. Good God, what are you doing that for? My answer to her was, how could you possibly understand how to protect your home unless unless we first show you how the burglar was going to break into it? And when you think about it, yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And that's the premise behind the whole reason we teach the world to hack for good. Because we have to understand how we're going to be attacked in order for us to possibly stop it from happening. If we go on to the next slide here, I can get this to move here. The average individual consumer carries about $25, less than $60, under 25 carries about $60 in cash. The rest they actually use with credit cards. Near-field communication, which simply means that I take my credit card and hold it near a pay terminal, is going to be over 130 billion by 2020. So the possibility of me being able to, or someone being able to intercept my data and charge things to my card is very prevalent. This confidence actually is going to affect a lot of people. So if I take the regulations and compliance, there doesn't seem to be really a whole lot of oversight. So we have to do a lot of that ourselves. Take Ashley Madison, for example. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about Ashley Madison, and it was in the news a couple of years ago, where they advertised, life is too short, go ahead and have an affair. And naturally, when their system was hacked, they released a lot of these, well, they released all of the information to the world. And people that actually had paid Ashley Madison to be taken off of their list because they may have had a moment of indiscretion at some point in time were actually still on there. So they accepted the money, but never really took them off the list. So it really gets to the point of, who do you trust? And really, the thing that I can tell you is the only person you're really going to be able to trust is yourself. So you're going to have to take things into your own hands, where you're going to need to understand how things work and how you can be hacked and try and protect yourself. So if you look at the evolution of finance, for example, in the 1970s, we're in the local community. Then we move into the 80s, where we have branches where credit checks are done and that kind of thing. Then moving on to online day trading. In the 1990s, that was really popular to make money. Then moving into the new millennium, the change starts to begin, where now we have things where we can pay almost immediately. Near-field communications, EMV, Apple Pay, PayPal, all of these things release amount of metadata of what we're doing. All right, so here in 2015, 2016, we're in where this change is actually beginning. So the hackers, it's really hard to believe how fast the world is changing. If you look at Tesla as an example, where the autonomous vehicle is actually starting to drive itself. It's kind of scary in a lot of ways. All of these individuals right here were pieces of things that have been hacked. Now, we're talking about things that we know about. But let's dive in, and that's scary enough, but let's dive in a little bit deeper. If I dive in to what's known as the dark web, where hackers are actually buying and selling data, the dark net and the dark web is used. I'm going to explain what that is here in just a second. malware markets used by hackers to buy this software. So you could pay individuals that don't have a lot of ethics per se into buying and selling this particular software that grabs the information. Money laundering, ghost markets, bitcoins. Bitcoin is very popular because there's no tracking it. Then we have fraud and counterfeit, loss of property. All of these things can be part of the darknet. Now, let's take a look at the levels of the darknet. The first level is what we refer to as the common web. All right, that's really level 0. That's where we are right now. We typically go into level 0, level 1, which is surface web, where we get reporting from things like Reddit, Dig, temporary email services, all that kind of thing. Level 2 is where it starts to get a little bit mystifying. All right, the Burgy web, Google locked results, honeypots, news groups, FTP services, things of that nature. Then we move into level 4, which is the charter web, hacking groups, shelling networks, artificial intelligence theorists, banned media, activist communications. All of these types of things are what we call a level 4 of the dark web. Level 5 is the big level, what we consider to be the dark web. Now, at level 5, we have what we refer to as onion sites. Now, let me explain to you what an onion site is. There is a utility called Tor. It stands for the onion router, and it's like bits of an onion where we peel back layers of that onion to get access to material where they wouldn't know who we are. And you can buy this illegal material, possibly human trafficking, bounty hunters, rare animal trade, different types of exploits, black markets, drugs. All of those types of things are available on the dark web. I think this next slide will actually be kind of interesting to you. What we typically see is the visible web. That's what you're going to get from Google. That's what you're going to get from the communications at Google. The deep web, or the hidden net, is like an iceberg where you only see the very top of it, but underneath there's a whole lot more than actually we could see. As I talked about earlier, you could download this piece of software, or you could download an entire operating system that's built with this piece of software, which is typically the best way of doing this. And you would get access to sites that are referred to as onion sites. All right, and you can see I just did a Google search for Tor hidden wiki. Normally they start with .onion, the URLs. Sometimes you can get access to this. Normally you have to be almost invited in to this realm of piracy, if you would. Moving further in here, here's some things that have been easily seen that you can buy. For example, if you wanted to buy $50 US bills, okay, they're produced on regular cotton paper, the same thing that the U.S. Treasury produces. They pass the pen test, you know, where you've seen when you hand a teller or anyone who's taking your money a bill, and they'll take a marker and they'll mark on the bill, and it'll turn purple if it's counterfeit, if it's not on this cotton-based paper. But it will just stay yellow if it's not. And they pass this test. UVI is incorporated, so it passes that test as well. They actually have been used, and we sent these as a test. We sent these into, I believe it was 20 banks, European banks, and only one caught the bills. And these were actually at banks themselves. So it'd be very, very difficult to detect this. All right, and we had the permission from the banks to do this. We wanted to see how easy it was to detect something like this. Things like PayPal accounts. Now, why would you ever want to buy someone's PayPal account? Well, PayPal accounts that has $100 on it are worth about 26 Bitcoin, okay, which is, at the time of this writing, was less than $100, about maybe $20. So you're buying $100 for $20. All right, well, yeah, I could see where that might be advantageous, but they're actually buying this so they could purchase services on the internet that will be actually drawn back to someone else. 100 eBay accounts where you're sent material, okay, by just changing who it's sent to, an intermediary who ships it off to someone else. 100 credit card numbers with the CV2 numbers on them. Okay, credit card numbers are actually not very expensive at all because they can be turned off instantly. But someone's identity, which is also sold here with their social security number, their full legal name, and their location or their full legal address are three things that are needed to steal someone's identity. Very, very easily done. Let's look at some things that might be done. Here's an example of our PayPal setup. The various balances and the price they're offering for these. So here's one for $700. Okay, their price is $85. You can buy this, add it to your cart, and would it have $700 in that account when you got to it? Maybe it would. Maybe it'd have more. Maybe it would have less. But they've just simply stolen the credentials from this individual, and more than likely this would be done to harness evil deeds. Let's see what kind of other things that I could do. Let's just go ahead and see if I can, I'll pull up one live if I possibly can here. I'm going to show you one of the most powerful hacking tools on the internet right now. I'm not sure why this square is here. I'm going to type in site:/pastebin.com. And what that means is in Google, I'm going to allocate everything I search for has to be as part of pastebin.com. And I'm going to type in maybe MasterCard. Okay, it has to have the word MasterCard in there. And you can see that we've got a number of places, and I'm going to look at Google's cached account where I can find stolen credit card numbers. Exactly what I've seen before. Now, am I really concerned about showing you this? Not really, because more than likely these credit cards have already been turned off. I wanted to show you how easy it was for the individual to be able to get access to this information. So we're send them a code from Pastebin, but they don't necessarily erase that from Pastebin, and Google indexes it. So this is part of our issue, part of our problem. I could find a number of different things on here. Let's see if we can try and find something else. Okay, let's just look for someone's social security number. And unfortunately, you can see very easily that this person, I won't put his name up here, well, actually there's his name, his date of birth, social security number, these things are readily and easily available on the internet. That person that you just saw on here is unfortunately had his credit stolen, okay, because it's very easy for somebody to do something like that. Now, the black market on the dark web, they change these various addresses, okay, often. And you really have to be invited by someone to get into this. And most people think that the dark web is, well, it's just about buying drugs. Well, that is part of it, all right, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's different types of con artists that can be purchased, crime, guns, even people, as you're going to see here in just a couple of moments. Here are some various goods, whether these were stolen from Louis Vuitton or whether they were legitimately purchased. More than likely, this is something stolen off of one of their stores or truck, something like that. They're buying it for whatever Bitcoin, and you'd have to figure out exactly, what that's worth. It's definitely going to be worth a lot more, or excuse me, a lot less than you would pay for it at Louis Vuitton. Some social engineering skills that are often found. You can hire somebody to do virtually anything. All right. So this person says that I have very good written and spoken English and German. If I can't hack something technically, I'll make phone calls or write emails to the target to get the information needed. I've had people make things you wouldn't really often believe. A lot of experience with security practices big inside of corporations. A friend of mine had done this on 60 Minutes, where he changed his phone number, which is easily done, to reflect that they were calling from inside the corporation, called the corporation's help desk, and said, I'm trying to get to this website, and for some reason it's not working correctly, and I've got this project that I've got to do. Could you help me get there? And he named the website. The person at the help desk, who generally has a lot of information or a lot of escalated security, can go in and get access to this. They were then able to just click on something, and they gave them access to the inside of that corporate network. Very easily done. This person right here says, I'll do anything for money. I'm not, and the word I'm sure that was put out there, he's not some kind of a escort service or whatever. If you want me to destroy someone's business or a person's life, I'll do it. Some examples might be simply hacking something technically, causing a lot of technical trouble on websites, network disruptor services with DDoS, getting private information from someone, actually ruining your opponent's business or private persons you don't even like. I can ruin them financially, get them arrested, have them change their information where they're on a child porn list, no problem at all. And here's their rates for doing it. It's really quite amazing. Let's talk about stealing your credit card, just as an example. Okay, a victim would be easily not safe from chip and pin if you were able to grab that chip and pin from some kind of a skimmer device. Financial experts actually are able to actually see the starter package of 50 credits. They cost about $59. Sending a message costs like 5 credits, and replies are free. If a message is marked priority, the site deducts an additional 5 credits. Basically, what they're doing right here is they are giving you the information from a skimmer that they have attached to an ATM machine. You've seen these in bars. You've seen these in hotel rooms or hotel lobbies. Things that look like they're part of the machine, but they're really not. You can buy from this place called Skimmer Manufacturer, and here's the software and the various bezels and that type of stuff to make the machine look like it's legitimate. Show you how to be careful when you're using these types of machines. Street ATMs, gas stations, arcades, hotels. I'm going to say probably the safest ATMs are going to be at a bank. If you try and use the ATM at some of these other places I've named right here, it's possible that you could have your card skimmed, meaning that they've grabbed your card details and they've grabbed your PIN number, where all of your information could be actually taken and all of your money out of your account. And if they know your PIN details, there's a lot of countries that are not going to put that money back in. So here is kind of the fight against cybercrime. You have your bank account, credentials and data, digital real estate. All of these are victims, okay? And we have criminal organizations and their affiliates, a lot of partnerships, okay? Crimeware producers being able to create this type of crime. Kind of tell you a real quick story. My wife is a professional photographer, and she uses a Mac because, according to her, the Macs aren't vulnerable to hackers, which I've tried to tell her it's not in use. Okay. She got a pop-up on her screen that said, you have a virus, would you like us to clean it? Well, she cleaned it and locked up all of the photos that she'd been working well over 200 hours on Photoshop of a wedding that she had just taking the pictures for. Now, if you think about it, she had a lot of money invested, but if we didn't pay the ransomware for this, which at that time was about $200 and something. I looked at the encryption, and it was encrypted with 256-bit AES. Now, my wife, not knowing too much about how the encryption works, basically went back to the bride and groom and said, don't worry. My husband's a professional computer hacker. He can get it back. I talked to her, I pulled her aside. I said, no, I can't. I don't know where you're getting that from. So what did I do? I had to pay the ransomware. It was either that or not give this couple their photos, which really wasn't an option. And it was, my wife said, well, they said they were going to clean my computer. And I said, didn't you believe them? These are the types of things that we're up against, things that we have to raise our awareness of. And to do that is to be able to be aware of these things so you can, or at least be aware of them. Moving in to some of the players on the dark web, we have, of course, organized crime. It can be established like smash and grab, where we have things like TJ Maxx and Target, where they grab many credit cards. But now keep in mind, the credit cards aren't going to be a big problem because I can turn those off in 2 seconds. And so really that's not worth a tremendous amount of money. If you see on the black market, a credit card, a stolen credit card is worth approximately maybe, I think, $1, okay? Although, if it may be less than that now, maybe 20 cents, a person's personal identity, that means their full legal name, their social security number, their date of birth, full legal address, those kinds of information, that's worth about $10 on the black market. Now, if you do just a little bit of math, if I go into, and let's just pick on some U.S. corporation, and I'm just randomly mentioning this. Let's say 3M Corporation, or let's say IBM, whoever it might happen to be that has a large amount of employees, and you're able to get into their HR department. In their HR department, they're going to have the payment details for all of those pieces of information that I just mentioned. So if that company has 100,000 employees, well, I guarantee you just made yourself a millionaire. That's what they're typically after. They're typically after these large organizations stealing the information about the individuals. The most information that is the most prevalent are the information for the aged. And you might think, well, what? They usually don't have that much money. Yes, that's true. But the way that Medicare works, it's very easy to scam Medicare and get information and get the money from Medicare. And the individuals from anywhere from 21 to about 40 years old, maybe up to 50 years old, those are prime targets for identity theft because they generally have, not generally, mostly they'll have good credit and we can steal that credit. All right. There are ways of locking down that credit in the U.S., and I'll talk about that as kind of as I answer some questions. But so the smash and grab techniques of just grabbing the credit cards, it's really not that impressive. Although if they were to grab that HR information, then that's going to be quite a little bit more. All right. The average exploit when someone gets into a company before they're noticed is approximately, if I remember correctly, it's 135 days. So most of the time, it could be, close to a half a year. Some people say it's all the way up to more, or even more than a year. There was somebody that got into J.P. Morgan Chase, and they actually were there for several years. And then naturally, ransom, okay, and some of the popular ones, I've given you one of them, which is ransomware. Sony Pictures was kind of held for ransom by the North Korean. They decided not to release that picture because it embarrassed them. Ashley Madison, another one that I gave you an example of. So who are the players in this? Generally, a lot of them are former Soviet military, the Russian Mafia, professional hackers, possibly spammers trying to get you to click on something, traditional Mafia, basic cybercrime organizations. There's a lot of really bad people in the world that we're trying to protect ourselves against. Let's take the first one, the former Soviet Union military. There's a lot of military industrial complex in Soviet Russia that was much more corrupt than their USA counterparts. With the collapse of communism, many upper military personnel inside of Russia themselves, they had few skills that paid well. So they were good at, we're good at money laundering, we're good at moving goods across borders, and we have a lot of connections with international crime. Who is going to buy that skill set? Well, I think you've already figured out who's going to buy that skill set. So we have a lot of individuals that maybe want to feed their family. And I'm not trying to victimize these people because they are doing evil deeds, but they want to get paid the most, and money is a great enticement. Then we have places like the Russian Mafia. One of the head of the Russian Mafia, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, Sergei, head of the Moscow-based Russian Mafia organization, has over 5,000 members worldwide. He started with extortion, counterfeiting, drug trafficking, blackmail, arms dealing, anything that you could think of. He owns his own organization, he owns his own banks, casinos, car dealerships, and even an airport. Very difficult to stop something like this. And you've heard a lot about the Russian Mafia. The second largest gang operating out of Russia is this one. I'm not going to try and pronounce that name either. Cyber crimes and activities, a lot of standard criminal ventures. They're believed behind a rash of bank robberies conducted over the internet in 2001, especially against banks using vulnerable Windows NT web servers. Oftentimes, people are slow to move off their technology because it's working. Let's take a look at some of the things that we could purchase. All right, here's some of the a form that is on this particular web form, okay, where they're asking various questions in a chat group. This one is called Dark Profits, okay, and they're asking various discussions where you could ask these types of information, that kind of stuff, okay, and this right here represents the amount of Tor traffic. Now, let's take, for example, Tor, and what it does is it basically starts by hopping through many different nodes on the internet. Now, if you were to take a look at your home router, I'm just going to use the illustration of the little blue Linksys router that we may have. It uses something called NAT, or Network Address Translation. What it does is it translates a private address, the 10.x addresses, the 192.68 addresses, the 172.16 addresses, into a public IP address on the internet. But what if we took that NAT router and put it into another NAT router, and took that other NAT router and plumbed it into another NAT router, and went on for maybe 20 or 30 NAT routers? All right, finding how to get back to the original one where the tables are erased, for example, the logs are erased perhaps daily, that gives you a little bit of an idea of Tor. But Tor also encrypts the message as it hops from one person to the other. So the entrance node in Tor sees the full text data as clear text, and the exit node, before it goes to the ultimate recipient, sees it. But all of the Tor routers in between it see only the encrypted data. And so the U.S. government and several governments are all looking for exit nodes. And they're looking to see what kind of information is coming out these exit nodes. Because if you're going to go through the trouble of having your traffic encrypted with Tor, there's a good possibility you're not doing something that's necessarily up and up. And I would say that's probably true. I have a friend of mine that works for the NSA, and he tells me that that's primarily what they look for is Tor traffic. All right, so if you're wanting to fly under the radar, Tor may not be the best way of determining that. Okay, so moving on, let's start with the why people would even do this. Well, first off, let's say back in the Bonnie and Clyde days where we want to go rob a bank, there's a high chance of us getting caught. There's people with guns at the bank. There are individuals at the bank that possibly could cause us some problems. Let me go back to this one slide real quick. There we go. That's what I wanted to say at. So we need to look at what the motive is of hackers. If you start with why risk going to jail, we actually have a maybe 1 in 99% chance of getting caught. And then of that 1 in 99% chance of getting caught, we actually have maybe a 1 in 100 chance of actually getting prosecuted for it. Do the individuals that are going to rob the bank, the Bonnie and Clyde that I had talked about earlier, do they have that same level of risk? Their risk is much greater. All right? This is why it's very motive. It's the big motive of attackers. You could easily damage somebody's reputation, getting paid with money, humiliation. They have a lot of cause, and they can profit off somebody's pain. For example, they profited off the pain that my wife had, when they had stole, or they had locked up. They actually didn't steal it. The pictures, all right? They used something called ransomware, and ransomware now comes in what's referred to as like, for example, .NET is a library of sorts, or is a framework of sorts. They have a framework of sorts that they can use for ransomware, making it very easy, very trivial for someone to get into the ransomware business and steal your information. As a matter of fact, I've read articles where individuals are being asked to work for these companies, and they'll pay your child care. They'll pay for benefits. They pay medical. They pay retirement. I mean, this is big business, because if you are sitting in a company that actually tries to do this, and in a country, I should say, it's actually trying to do this, the chances of you getting caught or even getting prosecuted are slim to none. And the way the individuals justify it, why can't we take some of the West's money when, my gosh, they have so much of it, we're just simply trying to feed our family. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's the kind of thing that we have to deal with. The internet can be a very bad place, and we have a lot of issues with that. Okay, so how the how is called the journey that is the kill chain. Okay, so we're going to start out with the impact and severity, and then the phases of that kill chain. First off, we're going to start out with reconnaissance. All right, this is our simple lowest impact of security. When I do a pen test on your organization, I'm going to see all of the different ways that I could attack you without ever touching your organization. I'm going to look at Google. I'm going to look at the various places that have the metadata, and I'll never go to your organization, but I will look up on LinkedIn who the people that I could target, who are the individuals in your organization that I could surveil, that I could possibly extort. I'm going to look where the low-hanging fruit might be. Okay, then we'll move into weaponization. All right, so I'm going to actually try and weaponize some of those targets that I may have identified in this recon phase. Ideal weapon crafted to build, buy, or rent a bot, for example. How many people have heard the story, especially like from their parents or somebody because everyone in this particular session right here, I can guarantee you, you are the IT department for your family. And if you know much about computers, you are that IT department. And you've heard your family may say, well, why in the world would they want anything I have? I don't keep anything on my computer. They don't necessarily want what you have on your computer. They want your computer. They want to make it into a weapon that they can use to take down a lot of opponents and maybe perhaps point the crime back to you. They can also cryptify their service. Cryptify, is that a word? I think it is. They can encrypt their service and remain very, very stealthy in doing that. The delivery might be the delivery of this weapon against a target. Maybe it's email, phishing, social media, a USB, websites. There's a lot of those things that we cover in some of these classes that most of the people that go through a class that I teach, I've heard they're not going to touch the computer for years after that. A little impractical, but the class does really scare you. Exploitation is the portion where we actually break into your computer. The code triggers an installation, and then we have some kind of a persistence mechanism. The persistence mechanism is how, even if you reboot the machine, it still reinstalls the bot. It still redoes what we're trying to do. And then the highest action, where we compose data and commands exchanged over a second communication channel. The objective is achieved, data exfiltrated, intrusion of the second stage target, all those kinds of things are done. So why are you thinking of what to watch? While you're thinking of what you're going to watch on TV tonight, 24 years of organized crime was on a different journey with your data. Maybe you were looking up things on your cable box. Maybe you were surfing the web looking for this. A lot of that information can easily be tracked. On financial impacts, we have $3 trillion US that have been stolen from the information that can be gathered from class action lawsuits, IPO impact, okay, initial public offering, bad press or losses. All of these things can have occurred because of someone stealing that information and making you look bad, embarrassing your corporation. All right. Most people, after the big Target heist of all the credit cards, I had no problem shopping at Target after that, because I know that I'm protected of my credit card. I mean, for example, if my credit card was stolen at Target, I'd call my credit card company and I would get my money back. Most people still didn't want to shop at Target because of this huge loss of credit card data. Now, I would be very concerned if someone hacked into an organization that had my Social Security number, that had a lot of very pertinent information. Okay, the bigger you are, actually, the more, I want to use the word easy. It's not necessarily easy. The more subjected you are to getting this information. Let's just take a couple of information here. The 101 ESPN employees. There's a Deadspin report that they were actually forced into divorce, wedding cancellation, a lot of things, because information that they had might come out. Loss of research, intellectual data, identity theft, scammers, those kinds of things. Basic economic disaster, okay, loss of business, or even non-recoverable consequences that you can't even recover from. This one I think will really kind of be interesting for you. This is a credit report. Now, let me tell you how dangerous this is. And I'm going to tell you right now, you never, ever, never, ever, ever, never, did I say never? I hope I said never, ever, put your credit report and save it to a PDF or anything else and keep it on your computer. Because if the bad guys happen to get your credit report, There is not a question that they cannot answer if somebody asks them questions pertaining to your information. Haven't you ever been asked by a bank, did you ever live at this particular address? Did you ever get a loan from this particular company? Did you ever do business with this company? Did you ever have a credit card from this company? Where do you think they're getting the information to ask you those questions? If you guessed your credit report, then you're exactly correct. If that credit report would fall into someone else's hands, I'm sorry, but it's game over. So don't ever store your credit report on your computer. Sure, download your credit report, print your credit report off, put it into a folder and put it in your drawer in your desk. That's fine. Make sure that you delete the credit report from the computer. So we're going to want to look for actionable threat intelligence, all right? Try to mitigate that threat before they enter your network. This is the proactive phase, all right? And possibly, if we do discover it, discover the threats that entered or tried to enter the network. And then three, basically respond to it, okay, as if it has been breached, all right, on an incident response. So let me go ahead and move right on to some questions that I might have. So if I could get the announcer to come back online and ask me some of the questions, that would be great.
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you so much for that. I really personally had no insight into what the dark web was all about. I've heard it mentioned, but I didn't realize how pervasive and how dark it can truly be. Fascinating stuff. There are some questions queued up. Before we do that, really quickly, I'm going to ask everybody to bear with me for a second while I take care of some Simplilearn business, which means I'm going to take over the screen here real quick and launch this very simple little poll here. What that's about is obviously this webinar is a public-facing webinar. That means that there's some folks on here with us today who maybe have never heard of Simplilearn outside of these webinars. You're not familiar with us and what we do, and you found out about this webinar through a link on social, or maybe a friend sent you here. And that's fine. We're happy to have you here, and thanks for joining us. We run a lot of these webinars every month, and we talk about a lot of different kinds of topics. So clearly, ethical hacking and security issues. We talk about project management and so forth. And beyond that, though, what we do as our core service is that we're a business and technology training provider. We offer 400 web-based training courses, and if you're interested in taking courses and learning more about ethical hacking and how to turn that into a career for yourself by keeping companies and individuals safe, tick the appropriate box. We'll have someone get in touch with you, and they can help you choose the right course of training to make the most out of your career in ethical hacking. I am being told by my, Alok is having to leave us. Thanks again for being here, Alok, and sorry you can't stay a little longer. Sorry we got a bit of a late start, but we are going to go ahead and get to the questions here in just a moment for the rest of you who are able to stick with us. So go ahead and tick the appropriate box. We'll have somebody get in touch with you. No obligation, but happy to tell you a little more about that. I'll also be sharing a link over to the Simplilearn site, guiding you to some of information on our ethical hacking courses. So I'm going to close this now, and we should be going back to Tim's screen. There we go. So Tim, just so you know, we're seeing your screen again. If you decide you need to surf around or anything to answer any of these questions. So we have a few questions queued up. I'm going to take care of the very first one myself because it's a very common question, and the question is this being recorded, and or can I get access to the slide deck? And the answer is yes. All of our webinars are recorded, but they are gone through. They go through a little production process. We clean them up a little bit, and then they get posted to the Simplilearn site. And they also very often end up on our YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed over there yet, please do so, and then you'll get a notification when new videos go up. Let's see here. In terms of questions, Tim, this one came up for a few folks. What is the best third-party kind of antivirus or anti-hacking kind of software that we can get access to on the open market, install on the laptops for our company or for ourselves personally, that will give us some reasonable amount of security against this sort of thing? Is, you know, things we hear about things like Malwarebytes or Microsoft Security Essentials. Where should we go?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Let me answer the question by telling you just a real quick little story. As of anywhere from 2001 to about 2014, antivirus manufacturers had found in the order of about 300,000, 250,000, 300,000 virus signatures a year. As 2015 and 2016 rolled around, the antivirus manufacturers started seeing a tremendous uptick, where we were seeing 300,000 to 350,000 signatures a day. Let me repeat that, a day. There is no way that an antivirus organization could possibly give you all of the signatures to flag the virus. So am I talking gloom and doom? Not really. I'm hoping that you're not perceiving this as gloom and doom. But I do want you to understand that the answer that I give you is my personal preference. I would go with the Microsoft answer because one reason, it's free. Another reason is you're not going to be able to find everything. There's no way. Am I touting that you shouldn't use antivirus? No, I'm not saying that. Especially if you're a person that is easily fooled. Myself, do I use antivirus? No, I don't. It slows my computer down. And I feel like that if I was able to get a virus, I would notice it pretty readily. I have various mechanisms where my computer is rebuilt every single day. I do all of my surfing from a virtual machine that's rebuilt every day. So if somebody did get a hold of my machine, it would last for a day. That does take quite a bit of doing, and you might say that I'm a very paranoid person. Well, okay, I agree with that. But the short answer is, if I had to go with one, I think I would go with Microsoft Security Essentials. But I did feel obliged to tell you that, you know, there's not a tremendous amount of protection there. If somebody really wants to get in, they're going to get in. That's really all there is to it. You need to be thinking about what you're going to do once they do get in.
Interesting. So having that, particularly for a corporation, having that response plan in place to shut things down quickly and to rebuild and secure your and your customers' materials as quickly as possible. That makes good sense.
I should also mention that another thing people should be doing is encrypting their computers, encrypting them with the Microsoft encryption that comes with Microsoft. BitLocker, for example. If you and your corporation are attached to a Active Directory and you have administrative privileges on your own machine, I can be in your corporate, I can have total control over your entire Active Directory in less than 5 minutes. If your machine is encrypted, I can't do that. And I'm not talking about laptops that you take out of the office. I'm talking about the machines themselves that are part of your corporate network. They should all be encrypted.
Good to know. Good to know. And that's if you're using Microsoft, that's baked in there as an option.
That's correct. That's correct. And I'll go over this in my class. I'll go into a great amount of detail, and I'll show you exactly how they would get in. And in less than 5 minutes, I'll be in.
Good. Fantastic. Good to know. Samir has a comment. Is it true that some of these antivirus companies that offer, downloadable free or paid antivirus softwares, that they actually support the creation and release of new viruses to help their business? Is that really part of the business model in that industry?
Well, let me tell you what he's talking about here. Let me back up, and I'm bring up a site that I can go to. VirusTotal.com is one of the sites that he's talking about. This is a free service where you can upload a. I'm not sure if my screen is being shown or not, but you can.
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
Okay, you can upload an exe, an executable, and it will be scanned by a number of antivirus manufacturers. VirusTotal is actually the best one, but there's another one that I typically use in class because it kind of lists the antivirus manufacturers on it. These are the. Would it be nice if there was somebody that would scan it by every single one of these? That would be nice, wouldn't it? All right. Well, by uploading your file to Jotty or VirusTotal, it does just that. But what he's talking about is it is a double-edged sword, because the bad guys will prove that none of these antivirus manufacturers can catch what they have done to conceal their virus. But by doing that, you are actually giving the antivirus manufacturers a reason to look more closely at that and possibly find it. So that is absolutely true. Okay, it's kind of a double-edged sword there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's. It almost feels like a losing battle in a way. It's never going to end. It's a tide that we can't hold back.
I've had people that have taken my class, and at the end of the class, I had this one guy not too long ago who took out of it, shook my hand, he said, "Fantastic class. I hate you." What did I do? Nobody else is going to fix this stuff. I'm the only person who can fix it. Now, how am I going to fix it? Well, wouldn't you rather know than not know? I guess ignorance is bliss.
Oh, my goodness. My mother-in-law's in her 70s, and she recently fell for one of these "you've got a virus, let me clean it" scams. She has a very hard time as an elderly user telling the difference between what's an ad on a site and what's part of the actual navigation. And she was in Yahoo, and she saw something that clearly represented itself as Yahoo IT support. Clicked on it, ended up on a phone call. Guy says, "Hey, I can see you've got some kind of virus on your machine. Why don't you let me in real quick and I'll scan your machine?" She gave him access to her laptop. He says, "Oh, yeah, you've got all kinds of stuff in here. Oh, you got to let me fix it."
For this price, yeah, of course.
Yeah, wow. It's so easy for them to do. I want to jump through a few more of these questions really quick here. Adam says he runs a couple of e-commerce sites. Where do I start learning to make the most benefit for my sites? What particular area of IT security should I first start with to start educating myself about how to protect my sites?
Come to my class. I mean, I'm not saying it as an advertisement. I'm saying that as the ultimate truth, because we will talk about all of the different ways you could be attacked, and they're going to be greater for some organizations than they are for others. And so I can't really give him a cut and dried answer, because after coming to the class, then I can address any question that you have.
That's absolutely reasonable. Actually, folks, for those of you that are still on with us, I just put some links into the chat module for everybody to see. So one of them is a link to the Simplilearn site guiding you to where the ethical hacking courses are. And from there, of course, you can surf around and see a lot of other courses available to you too, but that'll shortcut you in the right direction to get rolling. I also gave you a link to some other resources, articles and ebooks and things that we have up on the site regarding this issue. And then, of course, a link to be able to surf around and see any other upcoming webinars in a number of other specialties, including and outside of these security challenges. So I hope that at least starts to answer your question, Adam. And by the way, Adam says, Tim, you are the man. He appreciates you hosting this. Real quickly here, let's see. Does the in-house ethical hacking training prepare you sufficiently to appear for the CEH exam? And I think I can answer that question, which is yes. And take a look at those links that I've sent you to, and you will see that they courses are based to address the latest BOK for Book of Knowledge for CEH, and should prepare you sufficiently for the exam.
Absolutely.
Let's see. We've already answered Samir's question. I want to get through one or two more before we have to take off. What are the prerequisites for attending the ethical hacking course? What should somebody's technical expertise and experience be to get the most out of the course?
That's a great question. That's a great question. You're going to need to be proficient at general computer skills. If you've had like the Security Plus, or you've been using a computer in a technical sense, like as a help desk or as a systems administrator for a number of years, those are going to be the people that get the most good out of the class. Somebody who, like you mentioned, your mother, she would not be a good person. She would not understand all of the stuff that we're talking about. You know,
oh, yeah.
A lot of prerequisites that would need to be done first before they actually understand. Okay, and then I can even offer a test that's like 50 questions to give you a little bit of feedback if you'd like to take it to see if you're interested, if this class would be good for you.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Let's see. We've got time maybe for one more. Tamesh has a question. He's working on an application for a banking application. How can I make sure that my application is safe that I'm building? And I think maybe we can expand that question and wrap somebody else's inquiry into it too, which is if I'm working as an ethical hacker, what are our personal security responsibilities when we're accessing client data? Not only with respect to things like people's personal info, but things like HIPAA and other federal regulations. Are we going to learn about how to be conscientious of those sorts of things?
And the answer is yes, you will. Now, your first class is like, for example, the ethical hacking class is kind of more about these are the tools that are in your toolbox. All right, just like a plumber has his set of tools, a carpenter has his set of tools, a hacker, whether he be ethical or unethical, has his set of tools. It's more about the tools that are in your toolbox. Now, there will be a follow-on course, which is actually penetration testing, where you go in and hack the person's site with their permission for the good of that person. And that would be the answer to the person who is asking, I'm developing a banking application. How do I know that I'm going down the right track? The best way to know is to have someone other than yourself try and break into it. All right? And hire an individual. Corporations should not be accepting applications written from an outside source without them being pen tested first. Because there are a lot of developers, and I teach a development course that basically it's very similar to hacking your own developed website before somebody else does. So we teach the developers how to hack, all right, and what they would be subjected to, all right, and there's a lot of learning that goes on in that, and they end up coding in a completely different fashion.
That's perfect. Thank you for that. Lots of things for folks to think about with regard to keeping themselves safe. We're going to get one more question in, and then we are going to have to scoot. And this is kind of a, this fellow says, I know this isn't exactly business related per se, but with regard to the passwords that we use either personally or at work to access particular applications or services. I hear that it's best, obviously, to use a different password for every account, change them often, but I also hear from some people that it's more secure and harder to hack passwords that are random word combinations like unicorn bobsled than it is to hack a letter number string like 123 ABC. Can you illuminate on the best way to go for choosing passwords?
And I can tell you of a free utility called LastPass that will generate a random string of characters And it will be different for every site that you go to. Mine are generally 40 characters long, and they're different for every site. Most people will tell me, how do you possibly remember it? I don't remember it. The application remembers it. But I use one passphrase to get into that digest, if you will, or encrypted storage, that it puts it in for me automatically, and that blob of data is replicated around the internet to all of my devices, like my iPhone, my iPad, the browser on my Mac, the browser on my Windows machine. But the blob of data is never given the password, so no one could actually decrypt it. So even if the NSA held a gun to the guy at LastPass's head and said, give me the password, he couldn't do it. All right, he could give you the blob of encrypted data that is AES 256-bit encrypted, which, to give you an idea how strong that is, if we had a computer that could decrypt our second strongest, which is triple DES, in 1 second, it would take that same machine 149 trillion years to crack AES at only 128 bits. So our scientists have actually predicted our universe is about, our sun is, I think, about 5 billion years old, and our sun's going to burn out in about 5 billion years. And so, as one pundit put it, I guess they'll be cracking those passwords in the dark. So very, very strong password. So to answer that question, you would have something like he had mentioned. My password might be, I and my wife were married in 1990 and have 2 kids. Well, first off, your wife's not going to let you forget that. Okay. Second off, your kids aren't either. You'll see them every day. Something easy for you to remember, but very difficult for them to come up with. Something personal to you that is in a long string of characters that you have to enter just once, and then the rest of the passwords are put in for you at the various sites that you go to. All right, that's the best scenario. All right, and absolutely the best.
That's great. I've heard of LastPass before. I was actually going to recommend it to my mother-in-law. Again, as I say, she's an elderly woman. She has a million different banking passwords and things to remember, and she has them all written down somewhere on a sheet of paper that she constantly loses. So something like this might be great, but I wasn't sure how secure is LastPass, right? I mean, what happens if somebody breaks into LastPass and gets the database of all of those things? I presume that it's going to be...
It wouldn't matter.
That's good to know. I really appreciate that. All right. This has been fascinating, and I could continue talking about it with you forever, but we are well past our time now. We got a late start, and now we've run late, so I think we've fulfilled our obligation to everybody. Really, really appreciate you being here, Tim. It's a pleasure to meet you and to spend some time with you today.
I apologize for the late start.
Don't worry about it. Technical things happen with GoToWebinar. It's great once it works, but it can be a little buggy. So it's not the first time. It won't be the last time. And to all of our attendees who joined us today, we had a great turnout, some terrific questions. Michael is saying thank you. Andrew is saying thank you. We wish we could get to all the questions. We just don't have time. But everybody took time out of their day to join us here. We really appreciate it. Again, take a look at the other webinars that are coming up on Simplilearn. Join as many as you can. Get as much out of it as you possibly can. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to go ahead and shut things down and send you back to your lives. Have a terrific rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And one real quick thing. If you were one of those folks that was interested, and we had a few, if you were one of those folks that was interested in having someone contact you, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds if you want to speed up the process. Throw your phone number into the question module. Nobody else will see it, but we'll have it, and that'll make it easier for somebody to get back to you really quickly and give you some guidance on helping you pick out the right course. So I'll give you about 20 or 30 seconds to throw your phone number in if you want to, and then we'll shut down. Tim, are you queued up for another future webinar with us soon that we should point folks to?
I'm not sure at this point.
All right.
The date of it is, but just be on the lookout for it. I'm sure that I'll be doing some more.
Exactly. Terrific. Okay, thank you, folks. I see a few people have put their phone numbers in there. We appreciate that. We'll have someone get in touch with you. All right, we'll take off now. Everybody have a great day. Tim, you have a great day. And everybody, we will talk to you all next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.